Okay, I think we're recording. This session is what we're calling Taking Family Ministry Home, or Taking Kids Ministry Home. Um, we shouldn't go more than an hour. I'll hold us to that, but it's sponsored by the Cincinnati Area Baptist Association. I'm Mark Snowden. I'm the director for the association, and we've got some folks online interested in how we do family ministry, especially in the middle of COVID-19 and even beyond. I think that is, I heard somebody say this morning that the new normal is something we can't use anymore. It's just normal, and it's probably going to be chaotic from now on. I also saw George Barna had some research released yesterday that 1 in 5 Christian churches, and primarily mainline, are going to permanently close at the end of this COVID-19 time. And I can't help but believe that discipleship in the home is missing. And I think if we had that happening with our parents, that it couldn't help but make a huge difference. As you guys know, nationally, Sunday school and age-graded curriculum and that kind of thing have been on the decline for the last 10 years. I will say for the Cincinnati Area Baptist Association, our Sunday school average attendance does track pretty much with our AM worship. It's usually about 10 to 20% lower than AM worship. I had the opportunity to participate in a church plant in Jefferson City, Missouri before coming here 4.5 years ago. And in that church plant, we were totally family integrated with our church. We had 4 small groups, and being a church plant that was on the grow, we actually had more people in discipleship in a home-based environment than we did in our worship time that we met on Sunday morning. And it was something that was encouraging me in the small group that met in our home to have a 7 and 8-year-old sitting next to recent retirees. We had high school, a kid, 2 kids that were in love. They got married after high school, but we really saw how a family integrated church where discipleship was being conducted in a small group, in a home with age graded, but then also how we were helping mom and dad of children become disciple makers. And that leads us to Josh Lenon, who is the pastor of Red Door here in Fairfield. Josh, great to have you here. I appreciate this. And also including Ben Eikstein, that is the family pastor at Red Door as well. And guys, I really appreciate you kind of lending your expertise to us today. And before we get started, I would like to just also have just a moment of prayer. God, we know that you commissioned us in the Great Commission when Jesus said, go into the world and make disciples of all people everywhere. Lord, I pray that we will double down on disciple making. I pray that it won't be about programs or curriculum, but truly about your word ultimately, and how each one of us in our families and our homes especially can be discipled makers. So we thank you for this time today, and I pray that it will be done for your glory as we take a look at the normal that we have for today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Josh, let me start off with you, asking you a question. I'll throw the ball your way. Ben, I've got a couple of questions maybe for you too, but just talk to me about how Red Door started out with this. What was your idea to actually do a family ministry model for discipleship at Red Door?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. The stuff really comes out of my history, I guess. I was working at a large church outside Chicago. I was the family pastor at the church, and I was watching as, I think the numbers at that time were 85%. I think it's probably closer to 90% now. We're walking away when you got done. and we had like the youth group and the family ministry model that like everybody wanted, I mean, it was the one that, you had 300 kids showing up for youth group on a Wednesday night. And yet when you stepped back and took a look at what was happening post high school, there was just a lot of people walking away. And I think that was part of the discontent that started with me. And then, it all got wrecked. I tell Ben this story. It all got wrecked when we had this big mantra of, hey, we're going to make Sunday morning the best hour of your kids' week. Best hour of your kids' week. Sunday morning, best hour of your kids' week. Hey, bring your kids. Sunday morning is going to be the best hour of their week. And one Sunday morning, a dad comes up to me and he says, so let me get this straight. You want the best hour of my kids' week to be when I'm not with them.
Wow.
And it wrecked me.
Oh.
I mean, and I think it was at that point. Now, here's the interesting thing too. I didn't have kids at that point in time. So I was in my mid to late 20s then, and no kids. And I didn't think through the lens of a parent. And I thought through the lens of somebody doing ministry and our thing, And so all of a sudden, I would say, and this person who, has no clue the profound effect he played in my life, at that moment just asked a question that wrecked me and changed an entire direction of what I wanted to do at that point, which was really setting parents up for success. And rather than spending all of our time, energy, man hours, I mean, we had several full-time employees, several part-time employees that just worked with children's ministry. So to go from that, we're pouring all this time and all these small group leaders for kids. We're using all the staff time to set up small group leaders for success. The question just started to come of, what if we use that time to set up mom and dad for success? Because, we were talking about it earlier, the math alone doesn't work. If you look at, what was the average screen time now of a kid?
So average screen time, according to the CDC, for 8 to 10-year-olds is 6 hours a week, which
A week?
that's a week.
No,
I'm sorry, 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
6 hours a day. Sorry, I misspoke. And then 4 of those hours is TV. And so just in a week, you've got 28 hours of TV that a kid's watching, and over a year, it's 1,400 hours. And so just looking at that and comparing that to the 1 hour a week that we get at church, maybe, and half of that is instruction. So in a year, you're looking at maybe 25 hours with a kid if they attend every week but 2.
So 25 hours a year of biblical instruction in a Sunday school or, children's environment versus, you get that more TV than that in a week. And so we think that we're actually going to influence our children by providing an environment that's built around something that has not kept up with the pace of television and all these other things. And even in the TV shows, I mean, you're being given a culture, you're being given a worldview. And I think that the most powerful voice in a kid's life to change that's going to be mom and dad rather than a Sunday school teacher or a small group leader. So I think that's kind of like what started it for us. So when we started Red Door, we started with a family ministry model of having the kids in with us, at least a portion of them. We still do some kids stuff. It's not like we zeroed it out. There's some things that we really wanted to hit and solidify at a certain age. But yeah,
that's good. So that led you guys to doing this family ministry model. I know we're dealing with exceptions right now, probably for you guys, but let's go prior, maybe 2019 or earlier. Ben, if we could go to you and talk about family ministry, how that looks at the normal times, and then we'll contrast it maybe to some stuff you're doing right now.
Yeah, sure. So prior to this, we set up our family ministry. We realized that kids at really young ages maybe need more attention. There is some difficulties. We have encouraged parents to keep their kids with them in our service, no matter what the age. If they want them with them, we want them with the parents as well. But we do know that for some of those younger ages, parents want a separate area for their kids. And so we want to make sure that we have something there. So we have kind of our our newborns, toddlers, and then we have pre-K and kindergarten through first grade small groups for kids. And then so right around that first grade range is where parents are making the decision when to bring them out. And so by second grade, by about 7 to 8 years old, the kids are with us full time in our gathering with their parents participating in the worship.
Which the break is reading.
Yeah, we really put that break at reading just because we found we used to have it younger at like 4 years old is when they would come out. And we just found that it was tough to create the activities I'm going to talk to you about for kids that couldn't read. Put a lot of pressure on mom and dad that just, we wanted to kind of take that off a little bit. So for those young kids, we work on our discipleship structure that we have for the adults, and we've made that into kind of the kids curriculum that we've developed, and that's really kind of a catechism style where we give them prompts and they have answers, and kind of the whole focus of that is teaching them the story of the Bible and where they belong in that, and giving them a common language with parents so parents can talk to their 2-year-old about God, because that's very difficult. That's one of the things that parents, as a parent, you just realize, oh, I don't know how to talk about God to my little kid. And so we really are trying to equip them for those conversations. And then for that,
that's good.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
So kids who are reading that are in the service with us, we have a team that we call it Kids Stuff. We have a team that will get together, they have meetings, and they take the teachings that are going to be happening, and we say our whole process is we're going to translate that teaching into kid. And so we put together a pack, and I brought an example. We have fun bags that we have for the kids to come in and grab, and with that they get like a clipboard, and they have a little activity pack, and they can there's fun designs, and they've got little games, and there's little blurbs that they can read. And we've got several people who are involved in education backgrounds that help us make sure that these are developmentally appropriate for the ages of kids. So these are for like 7 to 9-year-olds. And so they've got little activities. Here was one that we did about building the temple. It was Tetris. They had to cut out little blocks and build in the wall, and there's little crosses in the blocks that we were teaching them. You're the temple, and the cross is what unifies us all as one body, as one temple for the Holy Spirit. And just really kind of connecting what that teaching was about in a kid kind of understanding, and allow the parents then to have conversations about like, oh, you remember when you did this in your activity? And so kind of, again, setting them up for good conversations and for leading their kid through the week and not just on a Sunday morning. And then we have fun things in there like Play-Doh and scissors and crayons.
Snacks.
We have snacks available.
That's
we
my
used to put it,
favorite part.
yeah, we used to put them in the bag, but then we realized like the kids were coming back and stealing them out of the bag, so we just put a whole bunch of them at the like cafe area at the entrance, and so they load up. But we have fun things, just kind of our activities change. We kind of have a cycle of what we do in planning. We have fun things like little secret decoder rings that we put secret messages in. We've done masks that they draw designs on, like Mardi Gras type, masks, and just anything to keep their hands. Lego
kit
kits
with Nehemiah.
Anything to kind of keep their hands busy. We've kind of figured out that if their hands are busy and their mind is engaged, their ears are open, and they're just going to soak in everything that they're hearing. And if we can connect it to what they're doing, we've just seen amazing results. Even myself, I've got 5 kids, and we leave the service, and a couple days later they're talking, and they'll say like, "Oh, Dad, do you remember when Josh said this?" And they'll go off and like, didn't even think you were paying attention, but they do. And so we have that. And then we try to transition them from
which
that.
we all know, like I would say this, we all know it as parents, that your kid hears everything you don't realize they're hearing. And then they repeat it back to you later on. You're like, oh no. And so, sorry, we got a fire truck going by here, but
That's all right.
yeah.
Hey, wait until they're in their 30s and they're telling you things that they heard when they grew up.
Yeah,
Oh
right.
yeah, no. It's. They don't say kids are wet cement for nothing. That's for
Right.
sure. No, that's good.
For our
Now,
10-year-old, we have started a little journal for them where they can take notes. We're trying to like move them into like the next kind of stage of like active note taking. And we have a big
Stickers.
sticker pack that they show their notes to our team member, and they get to go through a sticker bin and pick out stickers. And so.
well, that's really good to hear. Now, you're sending these kits and stuff home with parents. What if the parents are not necessarily Christians and the kids are just being dropped off at the church?
Yeah, that's great. We are working on kind of our tracking model of being able to see who's there and get contact information. And so we've started before all this happened. We were just starting the kind of like we use planning center. So we were using check-ins to gather information, and then we were sending a weekly email home to mom and dad that explained to them. So for the kids, small groups that they were doing, they've got a little curriculum and activities that they would do in those settings. And so it was an email home saying, hey, this is what your kid learned this week. This is the activity they did. Here's some questions and activities that you can do through the week. And we were just starting to implement that for our kids' stuff bags when all of this happened. So.
Yeah.
Which I would also say, Mark, that one of the things I think sometimes that we forget, like, we almost think that there's been children's curriculum forever. Because in our lives, I mean, it's always been around to some degree, but like you go back to Deuteronomy, right? I mean, there wasn't children's curriculum. There was Shema, right? And this is what you did. And I think that kids' curriculum at its basis is 101. So when you have parents, because this is one of the biggest questions I get all the time in terms of like pushback is, yeah, but like you can't have spiritual instruction from non-Christian parents to their kids. And it's like, well, sure you can. I mean, these parents are interested. Otherwise, they wouldn't be showing up at church or having their kids there in a church environment. So there is some level of interest. And what better way for that parent to learn than to start at the 101 themselves? And so we found that we have a family right now I'm thinking of that, the best place for them to begin has been, neither of these were churched parents, as kids, they weren't churched. And they're really kind of starting out with a lot of the kids curriculum that we're providing or the kids material, but it's written in a way that they're like, we get this. Yep. We can understand this. Now put us in a study on the order of Melchizedek and we're like lost. But give me the foundational pieces of God made me, sin broke me, we need a rescuer. Jesus rescues me. We can love others like Jesus loves me, and God's going to make all things new, which are the 6 pieces that we really concentrate on with our kids stuff. They're like, okay, we can track with that. So I think that's part of it too, is they learn where their kids are learning and they feel set up for success because of the questions and email you send them.
And that was kind of Josh was sharing the question from the parent that kind of wrecked him. This couple, the question that came up from the mom was, I love all this stuff. I'm learning so much. How do I even talk to my kids about this? How do I impart this to my kids, what I'm learning? I don't know how to. And so it's really been, from that moment, I've always, when I'm working with my teams, I keep bringing that question up. Like, we have parents who don't know how to do this with their kids. It really has reoriented. We were kind of doing the same path of like, what can we do for these kids? And we've really started asking the question like, all right, what is a parent going to do with this resource? Yeah, the kid's doing it, but how does this set the parent up? Mm-hmm. And that's really helpful.
That's huge. I like the idea of your role being a family pastor rather than maybe just children. And I know there's some churches that are moving to that. I would think that makes a big difference. In your role, I want to go back to something that Joshua said, and I think you alluded to it too, about helping parents succeed. Are there some kind of measures? How do you know if a parent is succeeding? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So we kind of we have this kind of our whole philosophy with the family ministry. We call it equipagration. So it's equipping parents to be spiritual leaders and integrating the family into the mission of the church. And
Okay.
so those are kind of where we look at, or at least this is for me, when I look at measures of success, do our parents, is the feedback I'm getting from parents on the things that are coming out, are they voicing that they feel better equipped to do this thing? And so a lot of it is kind of feedback related, but then also, are our families showing up to what we're doing? Are they participating in things as a family? And those are two areas that we've seen just overwhelmingly a lot of positive feedback when we're going through and putting things out, because ultimately the people on our team are parents, and we're basically creating for ourselves in a lot of ways of like, man, I wish I had this. And so then we've got some Facebook groups for moms and for our community that we oftentimes will put out like, hey, share. We give them challenges. Share what you're doing with these activities to our Facebook group, and
Oh,
get
good.
in for a gift card to ice cream or something. And so we always find like those fun challenges are a way for us to gather some insights into how it's being used, but also to allow the community to see this is going on and it looks different for everybody.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a lot of feedback. We have kind of trusted families that we know are going to be real honest with us about whether it's a miss or whether it's a hit or where it needs to be improved. And so we go to them, and we've kind of cut some things that weren't working and added new things in and focused on areas that we had kind of left behind just as we get that feedback in. And so success
That's
looks
awesome.
like
Yeah.
mom and dad being a family, seeking God together, integrated in. And it's not mom and dad doing one thing and the kids doing a whole other thing. It's them seeking it as a family unit.
Okay. All right. Now let's make the jump. That's sort of the normal, but let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about kind of the normal that we're in these days, and what does a family integrated church look like when it's not easy to meet together? There was some statistics from Barna, again, to go back there. Excuse me, no, this was on Glue. Well, it's just connected to Barna, but it was a pastor survey, and only about 13% of the pastors said that they were doing anything with youth and children. It's one thing to have had a full-blown ministry, but now it's either truncated or you can't meet in person. And how's that going in your environment? Is there anything we could learn from there?
Yeah, we actually were set up really well because of the things we were doing. We're kind of all around this mission to set up mom and dad for success. It looks different in this COVID season of shutdown and live streams, but the mission's still the same. So it's what is happening looks different, but the motivation behind it is the same. So we initially tried to give activities kind of like our kid stuff bags for parents to print at home and do during the live stream. And that,
Which for the first 4 weeks of
That's
COVID, when
awesome.
everybody was super motivated,
Yeah.
it was great.
yeah,
But it didn't take long for that to.
we quickly realized like parents are giving their kids the iPad and saying, go watch, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse while we, watch the live stream. And, families were settling into their own rhythms and figuring out how to make a live stream work for them. And so we really took a step back and said, all right, what do parents need? Like, how can we set them up to be the spiritual leaders? And it was,
Which was not, I'll say this, is not forcing your kid to sit there and watch an adult talk
right.
for 35 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just boring. And I think every parent is set up for failure if like what we do is say, hey, come sit as a family and watch this thing that we don't even want to watch. And you end up in this place of, just real difficulty. And I think a lot of moms, especially, feeling like they're failing. And that's not setting them up for success. And I know we talked about that of like, what could we do? And I think you guys did a good job of reorienting around some things.
Yeah, so we leaned into just setting mom and dad up through the week and realizing like Sunday is not during that live stream is not really the time that we're going to be the most effective at equipping them to lead their family. And so we have started taking steps on things that we can release, and we've kept the vision of like we're eventually going to be back together. So whatever we're creating and putting energy into, we want it to be something that lasts into that season as well. We don't want to create something that's just a stopgap measure. And so we have started these family combo cards.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
We did do a lot of stopgap measures at first.
Right.
Right. I mean, I think everybody was like, okay, let's see. But it was about 3 weeks in, I think 4 weeks in, I sat the team down, and I think just for pastors in general to understand, I sat the team down, had read some really good articles, and I can't think of the name of the one, but it was basically from Andy Crouch, I believe. And he was talking about how there is this ice age. You know, he's like, you can look at this as a winter, a blizzard, or excuse me, a blizzard, a winter, and ice age. And he was advocating a lot for like, we're entering into an extended ice age. So I sat the whole team down and gave them all brand new job descriptions. And that was a glorious day. You know, like it was like, you hired
brave man.
Here is your whole new job description. I love you. I want you here. But if you can't do this job, this is, you know, this is where we're going.
Wow.
And I think there was at the same time, like, you need to figure out how to do what you're doing for the long haul. Because, you know, and even the other day, I was reading an article that said we're going to be in mass for probably 2 years. So I think we need to realize this thing is going to be a very extended time, like you were saying at the outset, Mark. And I think it's what Ben's saying is, let's not spend all of our time trying to create temporary things.
Yep.
How can we create things that we've always wanted to do, but maybe didn't have the space to do? And now all of a sudden you don't have a Sunday morning thing you're trying to do the same way every time. How are you going to use those hours? Like you said, though, to still set up mom and dad for success. So I think that's led to like the podcast and the combo cards. And
so we have the combo cards, just questions for younger kids or mature kids. We let parents decide. We kind of are looking at that 0 to 10-year-old range for those. And we've been putting those out each week, and we have 5 cards. We put them on our app and on our website for parents to access. And we send out an email to our parents' email list saying like, hey, don't forget we have our combo cards there. We ask them to post, you know, with kids. They say the darndest things, right? So we ask them like, share the funny thing your kid said that totally, you know, their cute understanding of what's going on that we just miss as adults.
Ben, let me jump in and just ask, where do you get your curriculum? Where do you get your combo cards? I mean, is that based off of what Joshua preaches each week, or where are you going with that?
Yeah, currently that's based off of the teaching. And so the teaching team and Josh, they create a roadmap for the sermon series and stuff. And so we know what kind of the main points are, what the scripture is going to be, kind of the action taking away from that. Now with live streams and filming, we know what the sermon is going to be before we're designing these even. So we're able to see that.
Which we create. So when he says roadmap, Mark, I create a roadmap for the series. This year we're walking out Corinthians. So that's a little easier in some ways, but we create a roadmap that just is, what's the text? What's the topic? You know, it's, what do you want people to know? What do you want people to do? And kind of that basic framework. What are maybe key illustrations that we're going to use that day? And so they get the big idea and the takeaways. Yep. Along with the text, who's speaking, and kind of the main why behind that message. On that roadmap, it's just a Google Sheets document that's filled out for about 6 to 8 weeks because we take those chunks. And so the kids can look at that, and then they call me, and I kind of give them also a rough overview of like, hey, here's what I'm thinking, here's where I'm going. So they're several weeks, well, when they come to actually do the actual week, you're 2 weeks out.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks out on developing those. And so we have a team, they do a Zoom call, and there's anywhere on the Zoom call from 3 people to 7 people, depending on, we've got them a couple different times during the day to let moms and stuff go in, but they sit and they come up with, hey, what are some questions we would love to ask our kids based on this roadmap?
Which does require, I'll say this, it does require whoever's the lead teaching person at the church to be ahead. You can't do this if you're not ahead.
Right. You need to know where you're going. You have a plan, and it does make a difference.
Yeah.
Let me jump in with one resource I want to make available to CABA churches. At this point, I developed several years ago Family Time Devotions. It's a Bible story, and then it has discussion questions. And what you do is you walk through the redemptive arc of the Bible. In the church plant that we had in Missouri, and I'm sure it relates here as well, the Bible was not known, and you could talk about a Bible character and it was totally disjointed. And especially if you have a 6th grade or below, if you have children, this is really geared for a family where each week you're walking them through the Bible, and that's available. And you could write me at kabadirector@gmail.com, and I'd be glad to send you those 52 lessons. And that way that will help some of your curriculum. If you don't have a family minister, perhaps like they do at Red Door or some other place. It's something that helped us. Again, when you're talking about 2 weeks out, you know where the biblical story is going. And so it helps mom and dad have a win because they know for a year, 52 lessons they're going to spend during the year. They will walk through the narrative of the Bible. So, and it's geared
I think that brings up a great point that, like, why have we developed all these things and given them to Sunday school teachers? I mean, if we think about the fact that we could develop these things and give them to moms and dads with a little instruction of like, hey, here's what you want to do. It's 101. I mean, it doesn't take and let's be honest. We know the Sunday school teachers or small group leaders we're putting in place at times we're like, I don't know if that person should be in there. And mom and dad are like, oh, look at this expert that they provided for my child. And you're in the know. You're going like, oh, no, but like, we just can't outsource when, man, mom and dad are going to be there for so much longer.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand. I had a niece. They went to a church and their kids had practiced all week wearing a mask, and they went in there. And when they went to pick them up, the teacher didn't have a mask. None of the kids had a mask. And mom and dad said they're not going to go back again. So, I mean, there's the tension of where we are, what's being taught, but then actually feeling good about it. And then where do they go? One of the things that Barna had researched in 2015 is there's a lot of strife within families, and that's sometimes why families don't do devotions. It sets up mom and dad as hypocrites. Because the kids will hold them accountable. I look at it the other way. I flip it. If mom and dad are going to do a devotion, that will help them live a more godly life because their kids are going to hold them accountable. Have you run into that yet? I just wondered if that's a plus or a negative.
Yeah, no, I mean, my stock answer to that is, yeah, we are. I mean, yeah, we're hypocrites. That's the gospel. Like, yes, Johnny, I send or just not Johnny. I mean, I don't know Johnny. It's my daughter's story and Emmy. And so like when we do these things and you're providing that stuff of, hey, here's the stuff we do, and they looking like, but daddy, you do this. And it's like, yep, and that's why I need Jesus. And that's what he came for. And
I like that.
And
That's
think
good.
that is the hypocrite.
Yeah. Well, no, and we're not perfect is the thing for sure. So that certainly makes a big difference. One of the things I know we're talking about children, but I can't help but want to mention something about teenagers as well. One of the things on the Family Integrated Church website is they are saying that this helps prevent teen exodus.
Yeah.
If mom and dad are engaged in discipling, has that been your experience? I mean, how does this stop teen exodus from churches?
Yeah, I think there is a much different anchor that's put into a kid's life when mom and dad are that primary spiritual leader and voice. And I think there's a biblical piece to this too that we've missed. When we look at even the 10 Commandments, we're told that they're divided 4 and 6, 4 vertical commands and 6 horizontal commands, except those tablets were divided 5 and 5. And the 5th commandment on the first tablet is honor your father and mother. And why is that on the first tablet? It's because that's a vertical relationship. For a child, your mom and dad is the first vertical relationship in your life. And it is the place which you get your view of the Father from. That's why your dad's voice in your life is so damaging or so powerful and strong, is because he is a picture of God. And I think there's something to that for parents to realize and embrace their role in the kid's life is to paint a picture of who God is and what he's like, both in their failures and in their successes. And when we're encouraging parents to step into that, to that place, I mean, that's a hard, that's a heavy thing. But
Well, yeah. Are some pastors going to hear that as saying the family, the parents are replacing the role of the pastor? Have you had any pushback or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I mean, now I'm not saying that people don't think that or would say that. And I just don't think we can get away from Deuteronomy 6. The Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and you shall teach these to your children. And I think that is to mom and dad first, and then I think it's to the church as a village second. And I think that the church collectively does belong in that, because it talks about posting them on your doorposts and in your village. So it's there. But
when you're sitting down, when you're standing up, remind them of these stories.
And that's something we repeat to our parents over and over again. I've been releasing little short videos just aimed at parents about like, hey, this is what you're dealing with this week. And we're working on starting up a podcast for parents and one for kind of families to listen to. That surrounds kind of our breakdown of like the story and what we teach those younger kids. But it's over and over again, just repeating to them, like, talk to your kids. Just having conversations, when you're eating supper, when you're driving in the car, when you're doing the yard work, when you're, whatever it is that you're doing, just be talking about God and about what he's doing in your life as a family.
Joshua, let me have you speak just for a second to pastors.
Yeah.
Now, it's one thing to start up a brand new church that has the DNA already set doing this. But what if the DNA is not that? And especially during COVID-19, what would you say to them to help them be able to do this in their own church, to have a more family-oriented discipleship?
Yeah, I think part of it comes down to, I would say, you need to trust the families that God's put in your midst. And I know that we get a little like kind of catching that a little bit. I think in some ways as pastors, we need to check our pride that our system has our thing has become more important in some ways than the concern for mom and dad's voice. And that's not like to be challenging or anything. I struggle with those things. And so I think, to go back to what you just asked previously, even about the kids walking away, I think when we realize that a parent or a kid could come through our system perfectly and still walk away, how's that working for you? And I think sometimes we think of it in terms of good or bad, like, how's this going? I think maybe we need to think of it more in terms of, is it working or not working? And this model that we've had isn't working, because there is no company in the world that's going to go with a 90% failure rate and think that this is good. And I think that if we start looking at, okay, how do we do this? So I think it's just getting that why in place first, and like, how do we retain our families as a unit and make sure that when these kids graduate, they're not just left off on an island, and they're not just going off to college and parents are like, well, I'm free. We raised our kid in church. We did what we could. The rest is on them. And it's just, that's not the way, I think any parent really thinks. But I would say to pastors, if you are thinking about making a change like this, it's going to be really painful. Because I can tell you, we've had a lot of people show up and then walk away. People who are churched families, and this is not knocking churched families, they're just used to certain routines and habits and patterns. And when those are not available and it's not comfortable and familiar, it tends to think, okay, something's wrong or this isn't going to work. And there's a lot of fear that sets in. And we've had a lot of really good families leave that I would have loved to have had them stay. But I think their fear around their child not being given the same type of instruction that they received or that they had growing up, that, you know, they don't want that. And I think some parents don't want the responsibility either. They don't want the pressure of this is on me. They like the idea of an expert being there. But again, we know that that person sitting in that room is not an expert. And, you know, we do want parents to feel that. So I would say if any pastor's considering this, one, you got to take small steps, I think, to seeing this happen. And at some point, you know, there's going to have to be like a lot of vision built into a lot of your key parents that this is worth it and worth the pain, because it's louder where we are. When you bring in 7, 8-year-olds into your room, 9, 10-year-olds into your room, I've literally had kids walk up onto the front, say, "Can I ask a question?" And it's just like, "Go ahead." And, you know, one kid's like, "What does the word departed mean?" And it's
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Here's what it means, buddy." And so what I love about that is it keeps us from any sense of pretentiousness or production that would set its foot in our door. Like, we don't do productions. We're not the, you know, the high, what do you want to call it? Produced driven church or anything like that. So I think one, kids doing that prevents that. And then, you know, the other thing is you're going to have to just create and foster an environment where parents are okay that their kids ask questions or that their kids are a little louder or that stuff happens. And I think we try on a regular basis, even having done it from the start, we try on a regular basis to let parents know, hey, if your kids say something, if they're a little, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. This is the environment we have here. This is a family space. We know it's going to be louder. But if we seriously think that when the church first ignited there in Jerusalem, that those spaces where families collided were quiet, we are woefully ignorant to how a first century model of church would have worked. And you didn't have childcare. You didn't have, you know, you had men on one side, women. In fact, Paul even gets into it. It's like, girls, you got to quiet down, like at some points in time, because there would be a level of volume that would raise up because they didn't understand certain things. And so there's certainly correction. We encourage our parents to, like, hey, just, you know, let them know they can ask questions quieter, but it's a different space. And if you are not willing to go there, it's okay. You know, I kind of like, okay, it's okay. You need all sorts of churches to reach all different types of people. But I would say this.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're having success.
We are, and I would say so. And I think with families that are not churched, they love it. Because think about the experience from an unchurched person. I'm going to come in and I'm going to drop my kid off with a bunch of religious nut jobs, alone and isolated. You know, and we know that's not the case, but like from their perspective, that's sure. I think how they feel. And, you know, especially a single mom walking with her kid, that kid is her security blanket. And if they can walk in and being encouraged, have your child with you, it's good. It automatically puts them in that place where they are with their kid. They're the one in control of that. And then you get what we had recently, which was a parent who asked what I would say is the right question then. So how do I impart this to my kid? Not looking for the expert. Because of the environment that was crafted, I think she asked what I would consider the right question is, okay, how do I do this then? And
Josh, let me jump in and say something to our pastors right now. This church, Red Door, is right at about 10 years old since it started as a church plant. In that time, other parents that have come in have definitely agreed to this philosophy. And what's interesting is to watch how it has grown, even numerically. I'm going to talk to the pastors now. They are out of 114 churches in the Cincinnati Area Baptist Association. They're the 5th largest church now in our association. And I don't say that any small thing in our environment, but being able to get the disenfranchised parents, those that are de-churched, those that have never been around Christ or Christians, to be involved, I think is significant. Any final things that Ben, you or Joshua would want to say to our pastors or to anyone else, considering having parents really be more of take charge or more having a success in their children's discipling and in their discipling as well?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's definitely an understanding if you're thinking that this might be a direction you want to go. It is the direction that parents intrinsically want. Like they want to be the voice, the authority in their kid's life. Like, you know, they want to be the person that their kid comes to for answers. And so really whatever kind of path you take to integrate your family into, you know, the broader kind of church service and gathering that you're doing, you're going to be setting the parents up in that position. And I think that's, God gave them the responsibility to parent their kids, not you. And that's kind of where, you know, when we came to Red Door early on in its life, that was the thing that really spoke to my wife and I. We were like, it breathed life into us that we finally felt like somebody was saying, you are responsible for this and we want to help you do it. And we don't want to take that job from you. And so I think you're just really leaning into telling parents like this, yes, this is your job and you're going to be great at it and we're going to help you along the way. Ben,
are you available to help other pastors or children's leaders or whatever? How do they contact you?
Yeah, so it's just ben@iamreddoor.org. And that's iamreddoor.org. And so they can email me and I'd love to chat with them and I can forward them, you know, the different files of activities and stuff, kind of give them examples of what we're doing and
great.
How we have our setup and meeting structures and team and any of those questions they want to talk about, kind of the nitty gritty week to week, what goes on. Okay. Joshua, if a pastor wanted to contact you, would you mind?
Not a problem.
How do they contact you?
Same email, joshua@iamreddoor.org.
Okay, and that is iamreddoor.org. Yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate you all being a part of this.
Mark, sorry.
Oh, yes, please. I'm sorry.
Pastors, that like this season of COVID is if you ever had the opportunity to make a change in something, now is the season where you can do that. And I think I just asked, like, are you pleased with the direction things have gone in? Has it worked for you and for your church? And if not, you know, this is a season when you can really look at resetting some things, habits, patterns, rhythms that you as a church want. And, you know, there's this thing I told our staff team that, you know, when this thing hit and all the streets got closed and everything kind of went silent, there was a lot of cities that shut down and all of a sudden had the opportunity to do a lot of things that they'd never had the opportunity to do before. And one of those things in London was they went and fixed the entire street that Abbey Road is on, where the Beatles famously walked across. They fixed the concrete, did a whole bunch of stuff, repainted the lines, things that they could never do because of people constantly recreating the photo. Well, this provided them an opportunity to make a change at a structural level to something. And so I came to our team and said, hey, what are our Abbey Road projects? What are the things that this season provides? And let's take advantage of it, because Lord willing, you'll never get this opportunity again. But it is an opportunity.
It is a great opportunity.
That would be there. And, you know, when you rethink children's ministry, all of a sudden there's money available that you had not thought about before that you can rewire in certain ways. There's programming that you can change and how it aligns together. And so
yes, it is.
That's just take advantage of the season.
Guys, thank you very much. I appreciate that. This is continuing what the Cincinnati Area Baptist Association is wanting to do, is providing realistic, real life, honest to goodness, right now, resources and helps to churches, pastors, to be able to help you be able to thrive in the middle of constant change. Our next session will be Wednesday, September 23rd. We've got something at Liberty Heights Church is going to be on budgeting and freeing up money. 50% of our churches are giving lower than they ever have in the past several years. And this helps you be able to understand and be able to address that. This year, we're dedicated to church revitalization. We actually are planning an entire day. It'll either be by Zoom or in person. On October 5th, Monday, it'll be from 9 to 4:30 with Bill Hennard, who's an expert, written a book on that, and then our annual meeting on Monday, October 5th at 6:45 p.m. But thank you for guys being here today, Josh and Ben, and for everybody else that chimed in. We look forward to seeing how God is going to be able to use this.